Hello, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for Building Embedded Software Efficiently with an IDE, our June free webinar series. I'm Teresa Kisha and I'm your host today. With me today is Maciej Halish, Vice President of Technology here at Timesys. Maciej heads up our EMEA office and he will be the instructor for today's session, as well as for the remaining 3 sessions in this series. Today we start with session 1, Introduction to TimeStorm IDE. Recorded, and it will be available post-event so that you can view it again at a later date if you'd like. And at any time during today's session, if you want to submit a question, you can use the chat panel to do so. And we will try to answer your questions if we're able to during the event. And definitely post-event. So now, without any further delay, I'll go ahead and hand the controls over to Maciej to get things started. Thanks again for joining us, and we hope you enjoy this series.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Just a last check.
Yes, we're good to go.
Okay, fantastic. So welcome, everyone. Today we're going to start with a first session in the series, an introduction to Timesys TimeStorm IDE. And gradually, over the next 3 sessions, we're going to learn how to use this IDE in action, how to develop a product, how to develop an application with this IDE. Okay. So first question that comes to mind is, do I need an IDE? Well, an integrated development environment greatly improves productivity. Why? Because you have multiple different features, different utilities, all integrated under one umbrella. But are IDEs always good? Would IDE be very different from editors or command line tools if that's the development mode that you have in your project? What are the best IDEs in use today? And finally, what should you look for when choosing one IDE? Well, we're going to try to address all of these questions today. So let's start with the first one. Why should you use an IDE? Well, because it's a development environment. The DE letters in the IDE stand for development environment, and this environment supports the entire development process, from writing code through compilation, debugging, and other actions as well. What makes IDE useful to us? It's the integrated word, so integration. We can, of course, go ahead and use many different utilities that are available in embedded Linux to perform different actions in a development process, in a development cycle. If we are writing code, there are editors. If we debug applications, there are debuggers. If we want to look at certain aspects of our application, such as profile, there are profilers, and there's a ton of them. The challenge is that navigating through this process with so many different tools is very time-consuming. And IDE provides everything integrated in a single tool. Other than just the regular development features, IDEs also provide convenience features, many of them. A good example mentioned on this slide is navigation, code auto-completion, different diagrams representing the structure of your software, some tools to automate development, and many more. IDEs also support many different programming languages. The syntax highlighting, the auto-completion is readily available for languages such as C, C++, Java, Python, C#, but many, many more. This is just an example. So if you're asking yourself a question, if you should use IDE, there are many reasons why IDEs are a good idea to have. Can an IDE be an overkill? Sometimes, yes. If your task is to develop a simple script, or you're trying to automate just certain processes within your product, using an IDE for it may be, well, an overkill, too much. And in that case, very commonly used are simple text editors. In Linux, you're going to find, again, a wide selection of text editors available, from Emacs, VI, Joe, many, many different editors, which offer basic editing capabilities. Or you can also use command line. So in other words, development of code for which development process consists of a single step, which the step is code writing, I mean, for that type of development, you would be okay with just an editor. Which IDE for embedded Linux development? That's a next good question. Well, let's start with just IDE. Which IDE? Not necessarily embedded Linux, not Linux, but which IDE should we start looking at? And there is, again, a lot of options, choices. There are trends that Google is currently tracking. And this table here represents year over year the trend in what developers are searching for when they are looking for an IDE. And you can see from this list that Visual Studio for Microsoft development is the top IDE that developers are searching for. And on the second place, we have Eclipse. Eclipse is an open source project which allows you to run the IDE on many different operating systems, including Windows, Linux, Mac OS, many others. It's written in Java, and it has quite a few great features about it, which two of them are mentioned here. It's highly extensible, so you can adopt Eclipse for the custom tool set, if you like. You can leverage what Eclipse project provides, the baseline, the editor. There's also a set of plugins which are open sourced for C development, the CDT plugin. And on top of that, companies such as Timesys can add additional features. And we at Timesys have focused our Eclipse-based IDE called TimeStorm. We have focused it on development for embedded Linux. And TimeStorm's adventure with Eclipse goes way back. Timesys joined the Eclipse open source project very early on, around 2005. And we have contributed code to Eclipse. And TimeStorm, since 2005, 2006, has been based on the Eclipse framework. The reason why we're talking about TimeStorm today in more detail in this introductory webinar session is that Timesys has just recently released a new version of TimeStorm supporting many, many different features. Of course, they are all well integrated, providing this unprecedented experience to developers developing embedded Linux-based products. So our Eclipse-based IDE focuses on embedded Linux. It provides common functionality as debugging, analysis, and optimization tools within a single tool. All of these features are very well optimized for embedded Linux. Streamlining this way your development process. It comes with enhanced source code editor, syntax highlighting, very good visual debugging features, and with the recent release of TimeStorm, Timesys supports not only Linux as a host development system, but also Windows operating system, specifically Windows 10 Home and Windows 10 Professional. With Eclipse and TimeStorm come quite a few different keywords, such as workspace, project management. We're going to talk more about what they mean, but it's a way to organize your development environment of embedded Linux-based product. TimeStorm IDE supports development of new products, as well as maintenance and development of products that already have been released. So if you want to maintain, migrate C, C++ code from one product to another, and you want to have an IDE for it, TimeStorm is a great fit for it. It comes with integrated or level of integration, unprecedented level of integration with SDKs, software development kits that come from Timesys build system called Factory, as well as a Yocto project. Timesys has been a member of a Yocto project for quite some time as well, and we support Yocto. We have our own tools, but if you have your own SDK, if you're working with Yocto project today and you have your own SDK, TimeStorm can very much so work day one with your own software development kit. It's very easy for application deployment and debugging. TimeStorm comes with many different configuration choices. And not necessarily today, but over the course of the next 3 sessions, we're going to experience quite a few of those configuration options. Why would you use TimeStorm IDE? Well, there are many reasons. It all depends on your specific needs, on your background, on the type of projects that you've developed in the past. Many of our customers are moving to TimeStorm because they, in the past, developed for Microsoft operating system, or they developed for a microcontroller using microcontroller or vendor-specific IDEs for that particular microcontroller that they used. And given the experience developing this way, they look for an alternative in the embedded Linux. And TimeStorm, of course, is a great choice for it. Many of developers that we work with, they get overwhelmed with the number of different utilities that are available in embedded Linux. And the idea of working command line, developing complex C, C++ applications can be overwhelming. So that's another reason why many of our customers want to use TimeStorm. Again, the integrated word is the key. The level of integration that TimeStorm provides to do different, not only development, but optimizations, code analysis, tracing, code tracing, or performance tracing on a target, offers our customers ability to not only write code, but also make sure that it's of a good quality. And finally, we work with many developers who want to focus their efforts on developing applications. Linux comes with this concept or multiple layers, right? You have Linux kernel, you have bootloaders, you have file systems. It can be very complex. And when you develop applications, what you care about is specific APIs that you're going to use to develop your code, and a way in an IDE to use those APIs. So TimeStorm provides this very well integrated experience where application developers can simply grab a software development kit coming out of Yocto factory and begin the applications day one. There's no learning, no building anything outside of the IDE. They have the SDK, they get the TimeStorm IDE, they can start development of the value-add software for the product. And we also work with customers that not only want to write applications, but change Linux configuration. Sometimes the Linux configuration is missing a device driver somewhere, there's no driver necessarily development, but if I want to enable a device driver, this IDE, TimeStorm IDE, allows you to very easily do that. So that's going to be covered in more detail in session 3, when we're going to be talking about system-level development with TimeStorm IDE. Application-level development will be covered in detail in session 2. When we talk about integrated development environment, we also are thinking immediately about development cycle, right? So how does this integrated development environment is used throughout development cycle? So let's say that we have a workspace, and in this workspace we have multiple different projects which we have to build for a product that we're going to be releasing. One project at a time. Let's approach it this way. So for a given project, we need an SDK. A software development kit can come from the system engineers who are building a board support package, and they can provide you with a software development kit. Or you can leverage the ease of use of Timesys Cloud, where you can create your own software development kit with the APIs that you want in no time. So with the SDK, we are ready to develop. But to develop, we need also code. So we need to use some sort of source code management system, such as Git, for example, to download our code and set it up in the IDE. So now that we have software development kit and code within the development environment, we are ready to develop. So what do? We develop. We write code, we modify code, we then debug that code. We can analyze the results of our coding or a test run on a target, and then we can optimize. And this is not a one-time process. This is a circle. So as you modify the code, you're going to navigate through multiple of these boxes each time you run a process. Now, once we have an executable that we've debugged, or that we want to debug, we need also some way of running that application somewhere, either on a target, on a target of some sorts that's embedded, or a desktop. So let's say that we have this nice picture here of a clock and an embedded board on which we perform this cycle. The debug, analyze, and optimize is connected to the target. Okay? Now, at this point, you can ask yourself, okay, so I have my project 1, and it's working well on this one embedded board, but my colleague doesn't have any hardware available on his desk. How can he try to develop with the same IDE or take a look at my code? Because in Linux, you have so many different similarities between the targets and desktop. There are POSIX compliance libraries there. Many of the codes that you develop can be executed the same way on your local desktop as on an ARM architecture target. So if a colleague has a local desktop, which they typically do, or a processor emulator, very popular processor emulator in embedded Linux is called QEMU, they can use the same IDE and the same process. The only difference is that they're going to have to use a different software development kit. Why? Because software development kit contains the toolchain which produces executable for a specific target architecture. So if, let's say, the SDK A2 was for an IMX6 processor, we need another SDK with a toolchain that's capable of compiling, cross-compiling my project for a local desktop, which is x86, for example. So with TimeStorm IDE, you have ability to easily switch between software development kits, not once, not twice, but as many times as you see it fit. And with a single IDE, with a single project, you can test it on multiple target configurations, different architectures, supporting different types of products potentially. Okay, so it's very flexible IDE supporting very well the embedded Linux development process. Okay, let's start with our TimeStorm IDE. How do where do I get it is the first question. And the answer is you simply register for a free account on Linux Link. And with that free account, you can access a 30-day trial for TimeStorm. You can either go to timesys.com or to linuxlink.timesys.com and request such a free account. Once you are logged into your dashboard, and I'm going to navigate through the dashboard in a moment, under Tools, you're going to find a TimeStorm IDE link. Simply click on that. That's going to take you to a download page where you'll find a TimeStorm download button. And you're going to also find documentation, getting started guides, or user's manual to be exact, for TimeStorm IDE. Because TimeStorm is an Eclipse-based tool which is written in Java, it is required for you to install Java 8 on your host development machine as well. So you can use a Java 8 from Oracle or OpenJDK if you'd like. License. How do you get your 30-day license? On your dashboard, when you click on your name, you can click on a profile, and that's going to take you to active licenses. A list of licenses is going to have a button in the last column of this table. So where you see number 2, that's pointing to a button. Okay. So for every subscription that you have, the 30-day license is available on free subscription. You can click on this and access this license generation screen where you have to enter your development host MAC ID. So that's your network card MAC ID. TimeStorm is the default license is node locked to your development machine. And as such, that's the information that you have to enter here to get your license. Provide a brief description and then click Create, which will allow you to then download the license to your development machine and set it up in TimeStorm. Once that is done, you can start TimeStorm. Again, I'll take you through this process in a moment. But in TimeStorm, when TimeStorm launches, it will ask you about what workspace it should use. So to remind you, the workspace is a container that holds different projects in it. Okay, so you can have a specific workspace support development of system and application level software for a specific product. but a different workspace may have support for yet another product, which is similar to the first one, but slightly different. So that can be managed with Workspaces. It can be differences in libraries that the two applications use, or Linux kernels, etc. So Workspace is one of the keywords that you're going to find in Eclipse tools, any Eclipse tools that you work with. By default, TimeStorm is going to suggest where the workspace should be stored, but you have, of course, ability to override that suggested location by either typing in the fully qualified path or by clicking on a Browse button. Once TimeStorm starts, you're going to see a framework like this. If you're new to Eclipse, you're going to see several different windows in a single frame. And on top, you have menu bars, which allow you to control different utilities within the IDE. On the right-hand side, there's a button that's called Perspective Switcher. What is a perspective? A perspective in TimeStorm and in Eclipse as well, it's a definition of a utility. Okay, so perspective is a combination of different views that are used to accomplish a specific task. So if I'm developing an application, in my development perspective, I'm going to have a project explorer, but in the center of the tool, I'm going to have an editor. Okay, and then I'm going to have some other views, such as outline view, to help me navigate through the code. If I do debugging, I'm expecting different set of views, different set of windows in the IDE. So this button, the perspective switcher, allows me to manually switch between different utilities that TimeStorm IDE provides. So the center of the IDE, that's going to be typically used by an editor. On the left-hand side, you're going to find a project explorer. Down below, you're going to find a set of views that are stacked on top of each other. But one of the most commonly used in TimeStorm views in that bottom panel is console. Every single time you work with a target, every single time you do the compilation of your software in the IDE, that information is going to be outputted in the console view at the bottom of the IDE. On the right-hand side, there's an outline panel that allows me to navigate quickly through different portions of my code. And there's many other views that TimeStorm provides that you can add on top of the default ones for each perspective. Okay. Views. When it comes to views, there is tens of different views that are available in TimeStorm. Views that are grouped by functional areas. There are editor views, project views, console views. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, those views are then combined or presented to you through a concept of a perspective. So that perspective would, development perspective would be different from debugging perspective, different from profiling and tracing perspective. Okay, let's talk briefly about some of the main features of TimeStorm. So editor. Editor is really a state-of-the-art editor with all the bells and whistles. If you're coming from a Microsoft Visual Studio, or if you prefer to use the key combinations from Emacs, that is supported. As you type your code, C, C++ code, the IDE, if it understands the API, if it can find the API, it will provide the auto-completion feature. So it's a very useful feature, because sometimes we don't know how many parameters a specific function takes, suggesting or auto-completing certain things. It helps greatly in development. Context help on API. If we want to learn more about types of variables that a function takes, you can just do a mouse over a specific function, and the IDE will tell you what parameter types that particular function takes. TimeStorm supports different C, C++ dialects, C99, of course, but C11 and the new C14 dialects are supported as well. It has a function outline navigator, so it allows you to very quickly jump between functions. If you have variables defined in a specific file, it will be accessible in that view as well. You can also do context-based navigation to function definition and implementation. Very useful in C++ development, meaning if I have a specific function, a specific API, I can access its definition. So in short, TimeStorm provides all the features that you would expect from a modern IDE, and it greatly supports the C, C++ coding. One of the features that are unique to TimeStorm is the software development kit management. I'd mentioned that TimeStorm can work with software development kits from Factory, from Yocto. Not only that, it automatically recognizes those SDKs. So for application developer, or for any developer really, that greatly accelerates development. All that we have to do is simply install the software development kit on the same host machine on which TimeStorm runs. And then TimeStorm is going to scan for it, recognize it, and make it available for development, debugging, and all the other actions that it supports. By default, it will search for Yocto SDKs under specific location, for Factory SDKs under different location. It does support Yocto from different origins. As we know, Yocto can be configured in many different ways. So it supports Yoctos from NXP, supports Yoctos from Texas Instruments, which it's actually branded as a processor SDK, and from many other vendors that we work with. There's nothing special about the SDK that needs to be programmed in for TimeStorm to recognize it, but of course, many of the features that are available in TimeStorm will depend on the features that are in the software development kit. Okay. TimeStorm supports same development process regardless of the software development kit or the hardware that you use in your project. And going back to this slide where I talked about the development lifecycle, there was multiple SDKs, multiple different hardwares. That's exactly the point that I wanted to make here, that same IDE, without leaving the IDE framework, can be used to develop for IMX6 Solo X and IMX6 Ultralight and IMX7 and whatever other processors you may have in your project. TimeStorm also allows you to switch between SDKs easily. That's, again, another great feature of TimeStorm. If you start with one software development kit, with one architecture, that does not prevent you from changing overall architecture on the project and the toolchain that you're going to use, the software development kit that you're going to use with that project. You can simply access settings, and we've recently added a new feature called TimeStorm SDK Switch. You select one project or multiple projects, and a new window pops up, allowing you to switch easily to a different software development kit. Okay. And finally, the last feature before a brief demo that I wanted to talk about is the cloud integration. The software development kits can come from your colleagues that build BSPs using Yocto projects. You can also download BSPs directly from the Timesys Cloud. In Timesys Cloud, you're going to find SDKs that are available for different demos, but also different custom software development kits that you can design and build yourself. With that same free account that I've mentioned early on to access a 30-day trial of TimeStorm, you have a ability to build a custom board support package and software development kit in Linux Link. So those SDKs are available in TimeStorm as well. So with that, I'm going to switch the screen. And now you should see a Timesys website in my Ubuntu host. Okay, so going to Linux Link dashboard. Once you have a free account, you can register for, you can access Linux Link here and register for a free account, or you can log in. When you log in, you get access to the dashboard. And this is my dashboard on which I can now select Tools, TimeStorm IDE, and that takes me to the download site for TimeStorm. I can click on this TimeStorm 522 button, and that's going to start the download. Okay. To generate the license, I access the profile. There's also a button directly on this, and I can click on any of these licenses or buttons to create a license. Okay, so now that I've downloaded a license and I've downloaded TimeStorm to my host, I'm going to show you what I have on my host. I have TimeStorm, which I've installed, simply uncompressed it. And I have Java installed here as well. I created myself a little script that I'll show you what it has. It simply starts TimeStorm with the parameter -VM pointing to the Java virtual machine, which is precisely what the TimeStorm download site tells me to do. Okay. So with that, I'm going to start TimeStorm. And you can see that it suggests that I use the workspace, suggests the location for it. I'm going to say, OK, sounds good. And we have TimeStorm up and running. We're going to switch to Workbench, which is going to switch me to a different view, a different perspective, a development perspective. But what you can see right now is that I'm also signed into Timesys Cloud and that I have several subscriptions that will be expiring. I'll cancel this out for a moment, and I'm in TimeStorm. And this is the framework that I had in slide. There is a perspective switcher here. There's C, C++, and I have multiple other perspectives that I can switch to. But I wanted to talk today primarily about software development kit. What is it that I need to develop applications and system-level software, something that we're going to do in session 2 and 3. And to show you that TimeStorm has recognized SDKs on my host, I'm going to navigate to Preferences, and I'm going to expand TimeStorm. Scroll down, you can see Software Development Kits. Under Software Development Kits, I have Factory, Other, and Yocto. So let's click on Factory. You can see that I have one Factory SDK, so Software Development Kit that was built with Timesys Factory, and I have several Yocto software development kits installed on the same machine. I can double-click on any of these SDKs to learn more about where it is currently installed. This is a timestamp. I can take a look at different tools that are inside that software development kit. Okay. So we have GCC for C compilation, G++ for C++ compilation. We have linkers, we have assemblers, all the different utilities that we need to develop. And we also have other SDK, and here we have native toolchain auto-recognized. So I can develop an application that runs directly on my development host. So these are the software development kits that I've installed manually. But I can also click on this button here, Connect to Timesys Cloud. And under Builds, I can now search for specific SDK that I want. So let's pick, Boundary Devices Quad. And so that got updated. You can see that I have pre-built starting points. There's a theater demo, as well as some of the custom software development kits that I've built with Linux Link tools in the cloud. And I can simply click on Download and Install. So if I click on Download and Install, that software development kit will be downloaded from the web, from the cloud, from Linux Link, to be specific, and will be set up on that same exact host where TimeStorm is running. I'm going to cancel it out. We don't have time to wait for 842 megabytes. That's, let me turn this off. But that's another way of very quickly accessing software development kits. And through Linux Link, you can share the software development kits with other members of your development team, members that use TimeStorm as well. So multiple developers can access the same SDKs and do development with the same set of libraries, same set of APIs, API solutions in the software development kit. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you today. It's an introductory session, and we're going to learn definitely more about TimeStorm in the following session, session 2, 3, and 4. And at this point, I'm going to take a look if there are any questions.
Thanks, Maciej. There was a lot of great information presented in this session, as I'm sure our viewers will agree. Again, as Maciej mentioned, if you'd like to give TimeStorm a try, and familiarize yourself with TimeStorm before any of the remaining sessions in this series, you can do so by registering for a free account, generating a 30-day license, which will allow you to unlock all of the features of TimeStorm and use TimeStorm for 30 days. In addition to that, we have on our Timesys YouTube channel here, we have a TimeStorm playlist. We have videos in that playlist that range on topics from Introduction to TimeStorm to code coverage, memory analysis, and more. And if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll get notified whenever we add a new video to that playlist or to our Timesys channel for that matter. And we do have more TimeStorm videos that we will be adding in the coming weeks. So Maciej, do we have any questions from our viewers?
I'm looking still here through the chat. One question that I see here is on Yocto SDKs. Is there a specific Yocto version that has to be used to generate the software development kits? And the answer is no. TimeStorm works with software development kits from all Yocto distributions, whether you work with Jethro, Morty, Krogoth, which represent the Yocto releases. SDKs generated by those build systems can be auto-recognized and used in TimeStorm.
Great.
I don't see any other questions.
Well, then, I believe that's everything for today. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you again next week for session 2, Application Development and Debugging with TimeStorm. And on behalf of Maciej and myself, I hope everyone has a good day. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.